पहुंची शिक्षा के द्वार, पढ़े लिखे और बने कुशल, ज्ञानवाणी का उद्देश्य सफल, ज्ञानवाणी। Hello listener, this is FM Radio Gyanwani Shillong, broadcasting on 103.6 MHz. Today we present a program on the topic Science, Arts and Culture. Topper is Dr. S. Arwa Mudhan. Program produced by Kavita Raj for Gyanwani Shillong. This program is presentation of C. Lal Vyag Tulyanga.
I would like to discuss what science, arts and culture is in terms of common terms instead of using technical terms. Most often when scientists talk about science or artists talk about arts, or in general culture is being spoken of, people do not much worry about what the definitions of these mean, and it's probably not possible to give a single sentence or I find that a description in terms of common terms would be helpful in clarifying the stance as to what can be science, what can be arts and what is culture. Let us consider basically science to be an objective study of the laws of nature. By objective, it can be meant that the outcome of the scientific study, that is, the scientific results, do not depend upon the individual who studied and got the results, nor does it depend upon who would be the reader and the beneficiary. For all the meaning and factual information is the same and independent of the subjective influence of the individual participating in the study with regard to the purpose and of the activity and the resulting fact finding. Scientists have been identified for the unique contributions and the unprecedented discoveries, but this does not mean the results are valid for and constrained to only those individuals. Thus, the discoveries are of universal validity. In this context, it may be construed that if the discoveries were not made by the individual scientist at the particular time, it is bound to be discovered by someone else with the same validity. Therefore, the discovered facts are not going to be dependent on any particular individual, but it depends only on the possibility that the individual has encountered this discovery by his usual methods and pursuit. But the result is of universal validity. It is necessary to realize that even though historical perspectives and chronology of scientific events are important, they are no longer determining factors once the scientific facts are well appreciated and becomes part of everyday activity by its utility and usage. That some individuals do well in scientific subjects and some others do not have an aptitude for it does not change the scientific fact's validity. Those who are not well acquainted with the subject of science do reap the benefits as such and as much as any other individual who is well versed in the science subjects and has scientific study as their means of earning. What an individual scientist achieved by making an unprecedented discovery, in the event of absence of such an individual's effort, would not remain undiscovered forever after. It is quite well possible that the same discovery could have resulted by the successive efforts of several individuals spread over a longer duration and in such a gradual steps that everyone would have known well what the previous findings were and what has happened before, any particular stage of finding facts. Cumulatively, this must result in the same validity and the same kind of a universal standing for the fact that is found or the discovery. And therefore, such a discovery may not be attributed to a single-handed, quick and persistent effort, but could have evolved over several years. For example, this aspect must be well appreciated as far as the science is concerned. Thus, one may find that the atomic structure of the present day evolved over several years and several scientists to be named for such various stages of development of the present day theory of atomic structure. On the other hand, the discovery of the structure of benzene by Kekulé was a unique event, and it was such breakthrough that it would be difficult to envisage how the same fact could have been arrived at by the contribution of other scientists in gradual steps. This does speak of the individual's ability is unique, but never makes its applicability and usage anything to do with the personality of the individual scientist, Kekulé. Thus, there were impediments in the final reality about the planetary system, and the hardships which the scientists went through to make the facts acceptable, and these have been well documented, and individuals had to bear the brunt of the actions by the ignorant lot. But finally, the fact stands the test of time, irrespective of the fact that there were vehement objections to the proposal of the heliocentric planetary system. All the above substantiate that the individuals have struggled with all their might in the discovery of scientific facts, and hence due credit should be given for the way the discovery was achieved by the individual at the time. But these inevitable facts do not depend on any such means of discovery or personality of the individual who discovered. The same could have been achieved by another individual or several others in successive steps, and the fact would remain the same, held universally valid. Naturally, if a person has to succeed in a scientific career, trying to establish as original contributor would mean a highly competitive world, and where any other individual can be involved in any particular assignment which a specific individual is engaged in, and it depends on who is able to get it published earlier so that the credit for an invention can be duly acclaimed. Thus, the considerations of patenting and protection of intellectual property right would be of utmost importance. On the other hand, individuals can try to make scientific contributions as much as possible with intellectual curiosity as a prime motive, and further the advantage to the improvement of living conditions by unraveling such curious natural phenomena. Such scientists may not be concerned much about the credits and recognitions to themselves, since it would not matter to anyone else whether the recognition is duly conferred on themselves for any particular contribution, but would ensure the benefits of their own research activities permeate the environment, essentially a satisfaction of the evidencing that dreams come true. Now, where does the arts stand in view of what has been described of science? Considering the question of what is an art, by definition it may be trying to depict, describe and display to give an expression to certain natural scene, a natural occurrence, a phenomenon or an emotional theme, and presenting them to the public or a specific audience. For example, trying to describe the way a scientific discovery became possible could be an artistic endeavor, where the emphasis is nothing much to do with what exactly the scientific fact was. The artistic piece of work has an imprint of the individual's personality intrinsically characterizing the artistic output. This could be a sketching, drawing, painting and poetry writing, essay writing, music and the stage performance like in dance, music and drama. Thus, it is highly subjective, which portrays finally how the performer's individual skill and ability is a unique attribute in going through the same item being performed in several contexts. Thus, if there is a well-acclaimed artistic masterpiece, it is highly unlikely the same individual would be able to repeat this exactly the same way next time, because the experience gained would add to the improvement in the next performance. It is probably difficult to take credit for an artistic output by any other individual, but plagiarism, reproducing the original, mimicry, ventriloquism, and similar kind of artistic skills are basically meant to display the ability to reproduce the original occurrence. However, even if such performers do better than what the original resource is, it is probably next to impossibility to be only as good as original and no better and no worse. Thus, the impossibility that somebody else would realize a task not accomplished by a given individual is not a consideration at all in artistic endeavor. A piece of work would be also bear the stamp of the individual's personality, the contemporary surroundings that influences the individual to bring about such a piece of work. Once this difference between science and arts is appreciated, the remaining course of classifying the outcome as scientific or artistic will be a foregone conclusion. Thus, a living species itself may attract the attention for the way its characteristics are disposed, but cannot be an artistic outcome of any living being which is able to appreciate the uniqueness of the features of the wonder-evoking creature. When an individual turns out an amazing artistic piece of work, it should be aptly described as creative rather than merely being imaginative. In the scientific sphere of activities, it is quite possible that the individual is creative by evolving methods and means of the scientific pursuit, but the discovered scientific phenomenon cannot possibly be any creation of the scientist. Then comes the question of culture. Culture is something that can bind the evolution of science and arts and blend it in such a proportion that it appeals as a dynamic which provides a better living condition and better continuity in the society. It is necessary to take into consideration what is traditionally prevailing in a society to appreciate the phenomenal cultural progress in the society. What has been designed by the earlier generations, by the ancestors, by way of their everyday practice, to the later generations, to the posterity, may be termed as a tradition. It may be scientific tradition, artistic tradition, or religious practices, and it speaks out for what were the spheres of activity in which traditionally the community has been preoccupied with. It may not be possible to claim that in the earlier days the spheres of activity were well known in terms of the classification known in the much later times. But knowing what the activities were at any age-old time period, it should be possible at any later stage, modern times, to classify them to be among the relevant spheres of activity in terms of the spheres which is a manifestation in the modern time. Thus, it is an acceptable norm to modify or replace the old prescriptions by the more recent progressive measures which is the dynamism referred to in terms of culture. Tradition and culture are terms usually applicable to a closer group of people, a society or community in a region, and the global awareness of the people in the region about the climatic and environmental conditions dictating the course of changes and trying to make the culture stand out as significant in terms of the humanity at large may be termed as civilization. Thus, uncompromising insistence on tradition can turn out to be so inconvenient that it becomes highly counterproductive by the perpetual practice of it. This can generate apprehensions among younger generations, and irrelevant changes in the traditions in terms of enthusiastic speedy modernization would be countered with unpleasant and uncongenial fallouts in the living conditions of the common people. The appreciation of the exact relevance of practicing the traditional ways and the tacit culturally adequate pervasiveness provide for gradual modernization are the criteria for the existence of a highly civilized outlook in the society, and science and technology you mentioned do play a role in trying to modernize their practices from the traditionally known methods. And it is here that one can find that the science and the arts mutually contribute to each other in balancing out to provide a dynamism for cultural evolution, and eventually that this is possible in a society to evolve culturally is something which is recognized as a healthy civilized outlook in the society.
लिखे और बने कुछ ज्ञान पाने का उद्देश्य सफल ज्ञान